Dr. Soumya Pal, Assistant Professor of Economics at IFMR Graduate School of Business, is a policy scholar in environmental and resource economics with a PhD in public policy from IIM Bangalore. His research studies the macroeconomic impacts of climate change, adaptation and mitigation, and examines environmental regulation and local degradation through environmental justice. Dr. Soumya previously worked in mathematical demography on life tables and healthy life years in India. Beyond academia, he enjoys global cinema and Indian theatre.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Krea Faculty Podcast series, where we explore the research journeys and classroom experiences of our faculty members. I'm Jyothis Maria Franklin. I'm a fourth year PhD scholar at IFMR Graduate School of Business. And today I'm so delighted to have a conversation with our dear faculty member, Dr. Soumya Pal. I understand that your research is connected with climate change and macroeconomics. So, what according to you would be the most urgent story that this data tells today's policymakers?
Okay, so I think the one important thing that even in my research that comes up very prominently is that when we look at the climate change, we don't try to understand that how adaptation works. People are reacting to the extreme weather events, and that has a very larger effect. For example, if in any season the rainfall is less, then farmers do not have any option but they try to use the groundwater as much as possible. Now, when they try to use the groundwater, they will have to excavate it using some motor or pump. So all of a sudden, we see that there is an increase in demand for the machines as well as the fuel that runs it, that is the diesel, right? And that has an implication over in the diesel market as well. We see that implication in the manufacturing sector as well, those who are in the business of making those water pumps. So overall, when you look at uh, the entire economy, because they are linked to each other through intermediate goods. So whenever there are extreme climate events, it not just affect one sector, it affects the other sectors as well. Sometimes through adaptation, sometimes by lack of adaptation also.
Okay. So, environmental justice, it is also one of your research interests. In studying environmental justice, according to you, what patterns of inequality would have most challenged conventional thinking?
Okay. Yeah, here also there are two stories that are very important to tell, and they are mostly coming from who can adapt better. So I just gave you an example, the macro example. If I take you into the micro example, so if there is lack of rainfall or there is excessive heat, then again the agriculture household or the farmer will have to resort to some other production technique. For example, as simple as using groundwater irrigation, right? Now, for groundwater irrigation, you also have to spend money, right? You need to buy pump, you need to have the other logistics, you need to have power, etc. And now, government is giving subsidized power, but even with that, it's not enough to cover the cost. Now, in the same setup, when you look at the other farmers, especially in the Indian agriculture sector, there is huge inequality among the farmers in terms of land sizes. So there are very few farmers who have very big land size, and then there are many farmers with a very small land size where their overall budget is very restricted or very constrained, which doesn't allow them to use any climate resistant technologies for their production. Now, under this scenario, what we can clearly see that the larger farmers are those who are able to adapt much better compared to the smaller farmers. And this again goes back to the idea of Amartya Sen's capability approach, that not all individuals are equally capable to adapt when there is an extreme climate event. Now, this is one story. The other more striking story, which is not from my research but which I have been reading very frequently, that the social background of households, for example, your caste background, does impact, does have an adverse effect on the extreme climate event. So even within a smaller region or a city or in a village, the areas where people from marginalized caste group or disadvantaged caste groups live, they are more vulnerable to any form of extreme climate event compared to the others. This is both these things, that income-based adaptability and the social status-based adaptability, both are very important when we try to understand the environmental justice story.
Okay, Professor. Now, before pursuing your PhD, you were working in the domain of mathematical demography. So, how do you think your early work in mathematical demography have shaped the questions that you explore now in environmental and policy research?
Okay. This is a very interesting and funny story for me. I always thought that I am a statistician and mathematician. Coming to mathematical demography was a choice that I wanted to apply the knowledge of mathematics and statistics, because the theory knowledge, I thought that I can catch up with it, but I also wanted to understand its application. Now, when I came to this domain, I realized for the first time that there is something called as life table, which is completely based on which basically uses the laws of probability to give a number, which tells that how many years on an average are people living. That is what we call as a life expectancy, and that is a very important foundation for any health policy across the world. Right, and all health policies are designed to increase the life expectancy. That people should be able to live longer. And then I realized the power that the applied mathematics or statistics have in the domain of policy. And this was basically my motivation to come into this domain. And environmental economics was not a very initial choice for me. My initial tilt, or I will say the inclination, was towards health. But during my coursework, I realized that there are more larger, challenging questions that interest me in the environmental economics, and therefore I switched towards that. And all the math that I learned in the last few years through my academia, I tried to use all of them to make sense of the world that I'm trying to study.
Great. Now, Professor, I would like to understand how you connect your research with the classroom engagement, especially being a faculty member. And at Krea, we know that there is collaboration and curiosity which are central. So, how do your current research projects influence the way in which you engage with students, and vice versa as well? Like, how does the classroom shape the questions that you explore right now?
Okay, so I'll tell you two things. One is when I teach macroeconomics in the MBA program, or microeconomics for students in the SIS, the undergraduate students, most of my examples are from environmental economics.
Okay.
So when I talk about utility maximization in the microeconomics class, the one example that always comes to my mind is farmers' utility, right? The constraint that I tell them, the obvious example comes from that: what if you have very limited amount of water? Then how will you work around it? So that do regularly comes in the microeconomics. Similarly, in macroeconomics as well, climate change is always the central example that I put when I discuss the concepts with the students in the class, to help them understand that how the macroeconomics concepts are important to make sense of the world. And apart from the examples, the other thing that I also, it came from my research only, that I realized that when you teach something which is math oriented, it's better to use board. I don't use slides for my classroom teaching, and I have slides for my student, but my style of teaching is I come with notes, and it's a very old traditional way of teaching. I come with notes and I write it on the board, and I find that students engage more when math concepts are taught in this way.
Okay.
This is how I think I have been able to bring my research ideas into the classrooms.
Okay, Professor. So, if we are looking ahead, what do you hope would the next decade of research in climate economics and environmental justice will achieve? And also, what role do you see yourself in playing that particular role to shape that change, whatever it is?
Okay, yeah. I think in coming years, more emphasis will be on water, I believe. I think last few decades the emphasis in research has been on air pollution, and to some extent we have given enough evidence to the policymakers that what kind of uh, policy design is required for air pollution, what kind of regulation space, and why we need to do that. I think similar understanding will get developed in the next decade about the water. And I am actively working in the sector of water governance, especially, and I believe my research in with one of the PhD students, we are trying to understand that how the colonial rule itself has shaped the regulation space in many countries around the world, and that's why we don't appreciate. It's a very hands down approach, very centralized approach to manage the natural resources, which is sort of causing the adverse effect. And if we move more towards the community engagement, maybe we'll see a better outcome. So we are hoping that through this work in next 5 to 10 years, we are able to communicate this more efficiently.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Now, moving to a quick rapid fire round.
Okay.
So, first question, one film that reshaped how you see the world.
Okay, I'll say that it's going to be an Iranian film called as Baran.
Okay.
Why? Because before that, I never explored the cinema like that. This is during my master's program, and how silence can be a very strong medium of communication. I understood that day while I was watching the film. So
Great. A moment in theatre that felt like a lesson in policy or human behavior.
I think when I used to do theater, I felt like until and unless you absorb the character, it always feels like you're acting, and you won't be able to engage the student. So especially in the classroom when I teach, I try to bring that aspect that I absorb what I am going to teach, and that to some extent help in the classroom. And definitely in terms of policy making, what theater can bring is you can be tolerant towards diversity and be more absorbed and more passionate about what you are doing.
Okay. Which emerging question in climate policy or environmental economics excites you the most right now?
I think the footprint of the colonial institution in governance of the natural resources, definitely that excites me, and I'm planning to work more on that.
Great. Now, what question do you hope every student would ask because it opens the door to the heart of your research?
Okay, I think students will definitely ask questions on environmental justice, I believe. Why? Because when I talk about environmental justice, I see a reaction from people, and it's sort of like an eye opening that not all communities, not all individuals are equally vulnerable to whatever environmental hazards that we are seeing. So maybe they will start asking questions, and I want them also to think about that when they buy water purifier or an indoor air purifier, who is actually bearing the cost of air pollution and water pollution.
Great. Okay, which classroom experience at Krea has most revealed the potential of the curiosity of your students?
I think it's the post classroom discussion. I have seen students both in MBA as well as in the undergraduate program that there are students who stay in the class even when the class is over, and they make sure that until their doubts are cleared, they don't leave me. So even if it's a lunch hour, so that I really feel that sometimes I feel like I'm in a rush. I want to go and have lunch, but it also sparks a curiosity that students are so interested in learning.
Okay. One final question. Which insight from your research do you hope will have the greatest impact, but beyond academia?
I think beyond academia, I will say that if I'm able to highlight the role of community engagement in natural resource governance through my work, and maybe if my research brings in the idea of more decentralized way of governance, I think that will be the thing that I aspire for someday that it might happen. So this is where I want to contribute.
Great, Professor. So thank you so much, and that's the end of our discussion. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights and reflections with us today. And it has been really a pleasure in learning about your research journey and also the ideas that continue to shape your work. And wishing you all the very best. And thank you, everyone. We look forward to have more such insightful conversations.